I'm back with Dan Thomas. First, Dan, I don't know if you knew this, but I've been suspended. Did you know?
No, I didn't know that. What happened?
I got suspended again. YouTube went back and deleted a video of mine from several months ago with an ICU doctor. Not even going to say what drug she was talking about. I will leave it up to people's imaginations. One of the drugs you are not allowed to say anything about positive in relation to COVID. And now I guess they're combing through old videos. It's not even just a new thing. So I have this decision to make now about whether I need to go through my old content and start scrubbing stuff, but that's a decision for another day. You are a second-time guest, and the first time you were here, you were telling us about how you got fired over not getting the COVID vaccine because of allergies to the ingredients. And now you have a big announcement. What are you doing with the rest of your life, or at least the next few years?
Well, yeah, I've decided to run for Congress here in the Texas 4th District, and we've got an exciting campaign, and it's a short campaign. The election day is March 1st. Early voting starts on Valentine's Day, so I've already got the date planned for everybody in this area. You can get out and vote for early voting if you trust that on February 14th.
Okay. So with the election so close, why did you decide I'm jumping in now? Why not wait till the next go around?
You know, it's the way they design it here in North Texas. The filing deadline was Monday, actually, this week. And so we jumped in last week with a few days left in the filing deadline. And they just run a short primary around here, and it's intense. I'm out campaigning. I've been all over the place today. It's a district that runs all the way down to Dallas, back up to the Red River, and then almost all the way to the Louisiana border. So we've got a lot of counties to cover in this race. So we're out and about today we got our campaign materials in, and yeah. So I hope everybody can go visit my website, find out what I'm all about. We can discuss a little bit more about what led me to do this crazy thing. As you know, I was a journalist for 21 years and absolutely never thought I would ever be in politics. So a little advice to any other journalists out there: don't say to yourself you're never going to do this, because somehow you end up attracting it. But yeah, it's been a wild ride so far, and we've got an exciting campaign. And really, at the heart of my campaign is just personal freedom, and we're losing it. And I never thought in a million years that we would be campaigning on something as basic as you being able to make your own decisions in life in this country. But that's where we are right now, and it's really astonishing. And so I think it's people. If you've never been in politics, you can't ignore it anymore. We're at the point here where we've got to have help, and everything in Washington seems to be just running out of control because a lot of people don't want to get involved in politics, and I don't blame them. But that's what kind of led me to this decision. And as you said, you know, I got fired because of the vaccine mandate.
Did that situation encourage or inspire in any way this decision to get into politics, or were they totally separate?
Oh no, I would not be doing this if I had not been fired because of the vaccine mandate. You know, I put in my paperwork for the accommodation that my company had promised me the day that Joe Biden came out with this executive order. But it really, I think at the heart of my campaign, it's just basic anti-corruption. The more that I started looking into it, about why this happened, how this can happen, and how our representatives in Washington, D.C. are either just doing nothing or they're somehow in support of all these crazy mandates. How does that happen? Well, the thing that I found out, at least in this area, is that we elect people that talk a good game, especially here in Texas. You don't get elected around here unless you're pro-Constitution. So we're always sending politicians to Washington that talk a good game and say all the right things, everything that we want to hear, but then they get up there and you find out they're actually profiting off the very system they told us they were going to go up there and change. And that's been the case in this area. And we need someone that can go up there, represent our interests, get the job done, who's not trying to cash in on this whole corrupt Washington system.
Some people might say, you're in Texas. I mean, you know, get over it. Everybody else is dealing with more of what you're talking about in the other states. Is Texas really a concern? I'm just curious. Can you tell us a little bit about, is Texas changing? Is there, because it's often purported to be publicly this bastion of freedom and civil liberties. Is that not the case?
Well, I would say it's a mix, and in the population centers, Dallas, Houston, especially Austin, those are extremely left-leaning areas. So Texas, I would say, is very much a purple state, and that's just the truth of it. A lot of people here very passionately believe in freedom and liberty and all that, but you will find that there's a lot of frustrating things, especially with the vaccine mandate. I'll give you a quick example. After I got fired, I went to Austin to testify about a bill that would basically require your employer, if they have a vaccine mandate, to give you an accommodation for natural immunity, religious or medical reasons. And so I went down, testified, perfectly common sense bill, 4 sentences. Everyone agrees with it except the business lobby. And it didn't even make it out of committee. I spent 5 hours down there listening to testimony, giving my own testimony about what happened to me. And it didn't go anywhere. It was completely dead in Texas. We pride ourselves on being the freest state in the nation, and we couldn't even get something as simple as that passed out of committee. And what I heard was from all the lobbyists that got up and testified before me was that they were afraid of the federal government. They didn't want to pit their businesses against the federal government with this conflict that we have with this Biden executive order and what would have been Texas law. So it really opened my eyes that the problem is in Washington. It affects even Texas. If you think you live in a free state, you're going to have to contend with the federal government. So that's why I want to go there. That's why I want to make a change, and not only in this area for the vaccine mandate, but a million other things that come our way. I believe in the Second Amendment, pro-life. I don't agree with red flag laws, and what I see is that when they get these trillion-dollar spending bills, it's hard for our politicians to vote no, especially if they're going to end up somehow doing business with the department that gets the money from that trillion-dollar spending bill. So, it's a frustrating thing to look at when you know that the system is corrupted just based on the representation that we have up there. They end up voting for all sorts of things that are slipped into these huge spending bills that no one seems to read at all. You and I are both journalists. We can read a bill. I've done it my whole career. It's not that hard. So that's my promise to the voters, that we're going to be on the lookout for all of these things that get slipped in that end up eroding our personal liberty, not just in the vaccine mandate, but in a million other areas. It seems like there's a new idea every day for us to give up just a little bit of our liberty for the promise of security. But obviously it never works out.
So you've heard of Carrie Lake, I'm sure, right? She's, I think, still running for governor in Arizona. And she released a video on her own, but then also I think she did something with Prager University, PragerU, as they say, talking about bias in the media and just all the dynamics that lead to what everybody on the outside, or not everybody, but a lot of people call fake news. Can you tell me your thoughts on our old industry's role in creating the problems that you just mentioned?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that journalists just they don't devote the time to these stories that end up taking away, or infringing on your constitutional rights. They don't do those stories because either maybe a news director says, well, that's too complicated, or it would take too long, or there could be any number of reasons. It's just not appealing enough to voters. And I think we're getting to a point, I think people are finally starting to reawaken that they need they need to push their local journalists to do these stories. And I think there's some information starting to seep out. I think there's a huge backlash coming. That pendulum can only swing so far before it goes back the other way, but we've got to push it back. And so, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think the whole thing about media bias, I think it's such a multi-pronged thing. It's not any one thing. It's not like somebody in New York City woke up one day and said, I want all of the media to be anti-constitutional and against people's personal liberties. It's not like that. It's a multi-pronged approach. And I think a lot of it is that a lot of news directors out there in newsrooms around the country are afraid of the complicated stories. And so they trend to doing car wrecks and whatever the flashy thing is of the day. And all of that takes time. It takes about as much time as it does to read a bill and go through it and explain to the viewer what's in it. And so I could go on about, there's a lot of issues with a lot of journalists lack basic math skills nowadays. And that's one of the things that I saw coming into the newsroom. A huge frustration for me. I don't know if you saw that on your end, but we were getting reporters right out of college, great people, very well educated, smart kids, and they were with a college degree from fantastic universities who didn't know how to calculate a percentage. And so a big part of my job became in the last few years I was there, just telling them basic math skills, kind of refreshing. Like, you probably went over this in junior high, and it was just years since they had a math class, and they just completely had lost it. I don't know what's happened in the education system that allowed that to happen, but that's a huge part of it. Anything having to do with numbers, I think there's this automatic kind of hesitation to tackle that kind of story because people don't even trust their own math skills nowadays. So anyway, like I said, multi-pronged. I don't want to wear out your audience on all of my thoughts on what happened to the media, but yeah, it's a crazy picture, and I would warn anybody against latching onto just one thing to explain it all, because it is a multifaceted thing that has evolved over years. It didn't just happen overnight. We didn't get this crazy just by accident. This is a step-by-step thing that's happened to us, and we've got to start putting it back the other direction.
So I'm on my locals page right now, where I would encourage everybody to become a subscriber. You don't have to become a supporter. You can just subscribe for free if you don't want to comment or participate in my editorial board meetings, which I do every Saturday. You can just get the content on locals for free as a subscriber. So go over to locals, AllisonMorrow.locals.com, because if I get suspended again, that's the place that you're going to find out about it. It's also the place where I take comments and questions from people directly and prioritize them because they have made the switch over, as well as people who are watching on ROKFIN. But one of the things that I'm able to do on locals, which is why I try to get people over there, is I post my interview guests ahead of time. So I get your questions in early. That way, if you're not able to participate in the live stream, I will get your questions over to people like Dan. And so again, that's AllisonMorrow.locals.com. Head over there. That way, again, if I'm booted off YouTube, you'll at least know about it. I have a week's worth of content that's on my other platforms right now, including locals, where people are putting in questions for the interviews and stuff that if you're just watching me on YouTube, you never even knew about. Dr. Pierre Corey, Dr. Andrew Kaufman, Sally Fallon Morell, a bunch of people have been on this last week, and they have not seen the light of day on YouTube because I was suspended. So you have to go to my other platforms to get it. And if you want to submit questions earlier and be part of my editorial board, giving me story ideas and guest ideas, then that's the place to do it. So on locals, I posted that we were going to have this, and I have a live chat going right now too. And someone asked, Texas 4 is mostly ranch land. Have any ranchers disagreed with him?
With me? No. In fact, what an amazing question. Yeah. No, in fact, I'm meeting next week with some ranchers. One gentleman in particular has an amazing story. He's an ER doctor who owns a ranch. In Texas, just about everybody, if you can afford a little bit of land, you end up being a rancher. And so the issues with meat production have just been absolutely crushing the meat producers. So a lot of folks, especially in this area, do full grass-finished beef, and that's a huge thing around here, producing that. But then it goes to the processors, and the processors aren't paying them any more for meat than they did years ago.
Yeah.
In fact, in a lot of cases, they're paying less, but the processors are charging the consumers a lot more money for that beef. Their costs have gone up, admittedly. And so, yeah, it's a crazy thing that the ranchers are put in right now. Just another example of how our economy is failing, essentially, right here with the ranchers. In his case, he is an ER doctor, and he identified with my story because he is not going to get the shot. He was in danger of losing his job, and thankfully that's backed off for now. But yeah, it's a I guess to answer the question, there is a lot of ranch land. There's also a lot of urban area. The map has been redrawn, so I don't know which map the person that gave that question is looking at. But if you're looking at the old map, used to be a lot more rural than it is now. Because of the census and the redrawing of maps, I would urge everybody to check. If you live in Collin County, Texas, you need to give a close look to the new district. You might be in our district. That's a very highly populated suburb of Dallas, for people that aren't familiar with the area. So just a little warning there for anybody in Texas 4. If you used to be in Texas 3, especially, you might want to look. You might be in my district, so you might be interested in some things I have to say. You can check out danthomas4congress.com, and we'll have a link to that map.
Have you looked into terrain theory? Do you know what terrain theory is?
No, I'm sorry. I'll do some homework, though. I'll get brushed up on it.
I'll send you the link to my video with Dr. Andrew Kaufman. I won't go into it right now. It's the debate raging online, but also highly censored, between germ theory and terrain theory. Germ theory being what the majority sort of ascribe to, which is that you get a germ from somewhere and that makes you sick. I still feel like I'm a little confused, honestly, after sitting through 2 hours worth of terrain theory. But at the very least, I can tell you that it's terrain is the terrain, right? Like, of your body, and that it's like nutrition and toxins and stuff like that create disease. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but that was a question for you.
Oh, I might buy into that.
I'm going to send you the link. And anyone else who's watching who's interested in, I have terrain versus germ theory for beginners on my other platforms with Dr. Kaufman. I'll send it to Dan. You can maybe then you can explain it to me, because maybe I also lack the basic math skills and I missed something there. I'm not sure. All right. Any contact with Steve Bannon War Room or Louder with Crowder? Steven Crowder and Dave are doing comedy shows in Dallas.
I don't know. Send them my way. All my contacts are on danthomasforcongress.com. I'd love to talk to him.
I did War Room once. Steve Bannon had me on to talk about a video I did related to a law enforcement officer who was gunned down, who was working with the feds. And when they first contacted me, I remember I had this, I don't know if you have had any situations like this since you've gotten out of mainstream news, but there's this this pressure for, like, and I think this happens in newsrooms too, for dissociation from people that are sort of outside the safety line, and so because it's like, I think we're in this era where people, if you associate with them, somehow you're aligned, you're agreeing, you're endorsing, whatever. And so people have tried to silence conversation because it's like, how could you even talk to a person like that? And I remember, like, my first immediate reaction was, oh my God, what are my peers going to think if I go on Steve Bannon's show? And then I was like, screw them. I totally hate this idea that you can't talk to somebody who may be total anathema to established society, but like, why can't, I think that's the way that, like, the divide and conquer happens. It's like, don't talk to that person. That's a dangerous idea. You shouldn't listen to that idea. And then, it starts with people who are easy to sell as dangerous, and then it starts moving closer and closer to, like, someone like me. Like, I lost an interview not too long ago because I have doctors on my channel who have a wide variety of opinion on COVID, the vaccines, early treatment, all that stuff. And this lady canceled on me because of that, because she thought I won't get it, but this lady, she was actually a 5G expert, which I thought was fascinating, because I thought I was taking the risk on a 5G person because I'm like, oh God, they're really gonna.
You were too crazy for her.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, exactly. And then I end up being the one that's, and I'm like, wait, are you kidding me? Like, you're the person that's the crazy person, not that she is, but I'm just saying, like,
Right.
you're the person everyone was going to look at and say, oh God, Allison is like so tinfoil hat now. And then she canceled on me. So, it's just, I thought that was really funny. But okay. I think that's all from locals right now. I'm scrolling through. Are you concerned at all that the people that would be kind of in the constituents that might be interested in voting for you might be also skeptical of you because of your background having been in mainstream news?
Yeah, and I haven't encountered that. I thought that would be the case. My opponent, the incumbent who's in there now, was actually got in a Facebook battle with my wife, which is surreal. And they were going back and forth in comments, and it all started because my wife had posted a link to my website. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, long story short, she actually starts getting in a Facebook match with him, and his major criticism of me was not that I was in the mainstream media, but that I have not held public office before. And I thought that was pretty interesting point of attack. I guess he's right. I can't argue with that. I am definitely not a politician. So I guess he's got me on that one. So maybe if that's the biggest drawback I have, that's the biggest one I've faced so far.
You got to start somewhere. Where were you supposed to start? School board?
Yeah, I know. I guess you got to go run for dog catcher before you can build up to Congress. But no, I think we need more people without political experience up there. We need just people's voices heard that are able to go up there and weigh in the way that people in this area need to be represented. And it's a thing. I always tell people this: like, if you're looking for some advice on the media, how to handle the media, and all that, it's like this. Not everybody in the newsroom is a raving liberal left-wing person. It's like this. The way that I see it is, I'm a more conservative, right-leaning person. I believe in personal liberty. I believe in government as small as possible, and I've always believed those things. But when I was doing the work of a journalist in a newsroom, I wouldn't want my personal bias to come through in the story. Everybody has bias. Everybody in the newsroom has bias. You bring it with you, and you try not to let it affect the work. But I felt like as a right-thinking person, a conservative, more conservative, libertarian-leaning person, I would say that, when I won a battle in the newsroom, the goal would be for it to just be cut right down the middle. The viewer would have no idea what my personal political views were. Just slice it down the middle, let the viewer make up their own mind. And I think it's like that for a lot of right-leaning journalists who are in their personal views right-wing, that when they win a battle in the newsroom, the story comes out in a way that the viewer would really have no idea that there ever was a battle. Unfortunately, I think some of my colleagues that are maybe a little bit more on the left side of the spectrum, when they would win a battle, sometimes you would see a very clear bias in the story, and then people would get upset and they would say that's proof that everybody in the media is a left-wing person. So that's how I explain it, that when a conservative journalist wins a battle, the viewer, the reader, really has no idea. When a left-leaning journalist wins, it looks like we're all left-leaning. So that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, no, I could totally see what you're saying. I think a lot of people assume very highly skilled, intelligent indoctrination that is intentionally like you go to the editorial meeting and everyone's like, okay, Pfizer gave us 70% of our funding today, guys. So we got to make sure all our talking points make Pfizer look really good. That never happens.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's I couldn't even imagine somebody saying like that saying something like that in an editorial meeting. But I mean, given that, I think on the higher levels, not the journalist level, but I think on the higher levels of the company, you do get some definite influence when you're taking a lot of ad dollars from a major corporation.
Yeah.
They're, and look, I've never been on that high level of management at a media company, so I don't know what it's really like. But and maybe they would tell you a completely different story. But I think there is some influence there at the very highest levels. And I don't know what kind of pressure they're putting on news directors now. And hey, they kicked me out of the media, so maybe this is their way of cleaning up the newsrooms and just leaving left-leaning people in there. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I should say too, like there are people. I'm not sure totally what to call it, but there are people who would be like a civil liberties minded, left leaning libertarian type person who would align with that. I don't know if it's like the populist left and populist right or what you would call it, but the people who feel like more and more the control of the few is encroaching on the rights of the many. And sometimes, it becomes very difficult to figure out what that means, like how you characterize that politically. Because I have a hard time, especially reading my comment section. I can see people who would never in a million years consider themselves a conservative or a Republican, but would very much be against vaccine mandates. And so, like against authoritarianism would be the way that they would look at it, and they would be very wary of that. So, and I don't know, today's political world seems to be very different than how you would characterize it even 20 years ago. I don't know if that has made it for you, it's sort of a complicated arena to be in, coming from your background and just trying to get a pulse on how people are thinking. I mean, are you running as a Republican?
Yeah, I'm running as a Republican. This is the Republican primary coming up March 1st, and so and around here, Republicans are pretty dominant. So you get, even within the Republican Party, you get a pretty wide spectrum of beliefs, and you'd be surprised at how many Republicans are perfectly comfortable with mandates.
Right.
Republicans. And so, I think it's not enough to look at somebody's party. And I think that when you get up to Washington, really, it's kind of just one party, and it's them against us, basically. I mean, they're governing against the personal liberties that we have, that I believe were given to us by our Creator. And Washington, it's just kind of one gigantic party system. And it's in this area, okay, the Republicans are in control. In the other area, it's the Democrats. But really, when they get to Washington, it's just one gigantic party. And I completely understand what you're saying about, a few years ago. Think about this. Okay, so back in the Bush administration, Republicans were very much in favor of the Patriot Act, right? And Democrats were against it. And so this is something that everybody was up in arms over, because it allowed them to do a lot of things that I don't agree with. But it allowed them to do things like read what kind of library book you had checked out. Can you believe that we've lost the liberty to go out and check out a library book without having somebody look over our shoulder? And liberals, so-called liberals, were upset that they had lost that personal liberty back in the Bush administration. And I mean, look at how far we've come today. Now the president can issue an order to give a medical procedure to every person that works for a company over 100 people, and liberals are okay with that now. So it's strange how the liberal or conservative thing kind of gets bent to fit whatever party wants more power at the time. And really, I think when they get to Washington, it's just one party, and they're working against us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Okay, I had a couple more questions that came in for you, but first, Dan, did we talk about this last time? You drink wine?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I still haven't gotten some of this, but I need to check it out.
Well, if you win, you can celebrate with Allison, winepromo.com. And you still, I believe, may have time. I'm not totally sure if we're past the holidays at this point, but you might as well get your order in today, and then maybe it'll get there by Christmas, but definitely it'll get there by New Year's, and then you have something good to drink besides $5 champagne from Walgreens, right? So go to AllisonWinePro.com. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's typically what we have. But anyway, so you get 50% off some of my favorite high altitude Malbecs from Argentina. Somebody was asking in the ROKFIN chat about why high altitude. Okay. First is usually they have to use far fewer pesticides and chemicals because it's way high up. These are high extreme altitude. Some of these are at 9,000 feet almost. So there are a lot fewer bugs and so fewer chemicals. They also use no filtering, no flavoring, and no dyes in these wines. And they are very robust because when you have grapes that are grown higher up, closer to the sun, with harsh temperatures, if I'm saying this right, I don't know, Dan, maybe you're more of an aficionado than I am. It tends to force the grapes to work harder to survive, and so that affects the taste. They tend to be more robust. Did I bullshit my way through that well enough? I think I did. Have you heard of that? Can you hear me, Dan?
Did I lose you?
I think you may have lost me. That's okay. Keep trying to figure it out because I have one more sponsor I have to tell everybody about. TwinEngineCoffee.com/Allison. Don't forget that you can get my favorite coffees as well as my favorite wines. These are high altitude shade grown Nicaraguan coffees from the high altitude regions. I just said that of Nicaragua, and the CEO and president of the company lives right there where they grow, harvest, and roast the beans. So the oversight is very close to home and creates a lot of local jobs there. And the coffee's great. And also you can get, oh, look, it looks like you can get a Nicaraguan nativity in felt. And also I like the tea. If you like tea, you're a tea drinker, you can check out the Caturra tea. It's very good. I cold brew mine, and it's like, it has allegedly a lot of antioxidants in it. I haven't tested it myself, but I feel great after I drink the Caturra tea. I'll just say that. You don't get the shakes of coffee, but you get a lot of good caffeine. Okay, let's see if nope, Dan's gone. Well, let's see. We'll go back to locals real fast if I can find it here, and maybe he will come back in time, and then I can ask him the question. Is your congressional district covered by your former TV station? Do the voters already know you? That's a very good question. I hope he comes back because I would like to ask him. Oh, here he is. Here he is. Can you hear me, Dan? Can you hear me, Dan?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, I'm back.
Okay. It was good. It was perfectly timed because I got to read my ads. Okay, somebody asked on locals about, is your congressional district covered by your former TV station, and do the voters already know you?
Yeah, about 3 counties in it out of 18 are covered. So, and this is the part that I always hate because to reach the people who don't know me yet, it's going to take money. So if people want to help out, you can go to danthomasforcongress.com and help us out, because it's not cheap to do one of these things, and it's going to take a lot of patriots standing up together to get this to get everybody connected and looped in. But yeah, I am pretty well known. It's actually a 3-way race, and I should be pretty well known in about 25% of the area. So we can use everybody's help to get the word out. So especially if you're in Collin County, Texas, get a hold of me and let's get together. And if you're anywhere else, Lamar County, Fannin County, Delta County, Hopkins County, Rains County, I hope I'm not leaving anybody out, Rockwall, Red River, Bowie, you get a hold of me and we'll connect and we'll try to get the word out about this campaign.
What distance is Dan from Pat Fallon, the incumbent? And does Dan have a comment on Pat Fallon dumping Microsoft stock before $10 billion Pentagon contract was scrapped?
I think those stories are definitely out there. Seems to be a new one every day. He does have a lot of situations in his life, in his personal finances and in his business that I believe conflict with the job that he's doing there in Washington. The Microsoft stock dump is troubling. That was 2 weeks before anybody else had that information. And, my thing is this, it's only, can you believe this, Allison? The Stock Act, which is insider trading for congressmen, only became a law less than 10 years ago.
Wow.
And the fine for violating it is a couple of $100. So, it's kind of
so Martha Stewart really did get a raw deal.
Yeah, Martha Stewart goes, you or I, including Martha Stewart, go to prison over this kind of stuff. But violation of the Stock Act, you just go in, plead guilty, and they do a little say, don't do that again now. And then you're off scot-free. So, or a couple $100 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I guess they could levy it per trade, and that could add up to a few thousand. So who knows? But it's that's one of the things I would urge everybody just to do their. You have some amazing viewers here with some incredibly inquisitive questions, because a lot of people aren't aware of this. A lot of people just don't do their research going into an election, and so I would urge everybody to do that this time around. There's a lot of things, and I would just say in general that if you have a business that does business with the department that you're overseeing, you probably don't need to be overseeing that department in Congress. That's one of the troubling things as well about our current representation. So, it's there's a lot of things out there that people can research for themselves and make up their own mind. But yeah, it's I would say that's among the many things that distinguish me from him. There's this thing that out there, I don't know if your viewers get into this much, but it's called a red flag law. And I find myself having to explain this to a lot of people, even here in Texas. And that's basically where a judge can decide that, you had PTSD or something in your past, maybe a mental illness, and you don't have the right anymore to have a gun to protect yourself or for whatever you want to have a gun for. So the judge can decide to take it away. You've been red flagged. And so that's something that I would never vote for, even if it is slipped into a huge spending bill. That goes back to just reading these bills before you vote on them. And I think that's the very basic thing that a representative can do, is read these things before they get passed. Same way, things like critical race theory being slipped in. One controversial thing that's erupted around here is the passage of the requirement for women to be drafted into the military. Now that's an interesting topic for your show. I'm not against women being in the military. Obviously, they can do a much better job than men in so many ways. But traditionally, we've given them the choice about whether they can join into the military. Pretty soon, and it's already passed the House, women are going to be required to register for selective service. They took out all the gender-specific pronouns in that bill, and it got passed. And hey, if we were at war with China or some sort of catastrophic thing, then maybe. But until that day happens, I think that women should be able to choose for themselves whether they get involved with military service. And so anyway, those are some of the things that we differ on going forward. And again, I want to just talk about my opponent the whole time, but I'm a personal liberty guy. I believe in freedom, and I think that we need to try to put this genie back in the bottle. The federal government's completely out of control. There's a lot of things that I believe about with the endless printing of money. It's absolutely destroying our economy. Our monetary policy's out of control. We've handed the keys to our entire monetary supply over to the Federal Reserve, which is not federal, and there is no reserve. And so it's a private bank that's controlling so much about our economy right now. And I believe that it's beyond the point of theory. We are out of control, and this is headed in a very bad direction. And we need people in Washington that can try to stop it and stop this crazy money printing machine that's absolutely destroying the value of our dollar right now. So anyway, lots of things that we differ on, and lots of things that I'm all about. So you can check out more DanThomasForCongress.com.
I guess one of my last questions is, do you think if you said all of that in a newsroom that most of the people would have any idea what you're talking about, like with the Fed or the others. I mean, I'm just curious, like what, for scale of 1 to 10, how familiar with those topics do you think the majority of people in your old newsroom or just newsrooms in general would be?
Well, I think the people that worked with me probably got pretty tired of hearing me try to explain monetary supply issues.
Yeah.
Um, so I think they would at least understand a little bit about what the Federal Reserve was. But yeah, if we ever got somebody new in the newsroom, you would just see a complete blank look in their eyes. Like, what do you mean the Federal Reserve isn't federal? Yeah, it's not a federal agency. It's not federal. And so it's I think that yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10 on awareness, I think in most newsrooms it would be 0.
Yeah, it's so funny. Well, and people like James Corbett, who have done extensive work on the Fed, for instance, are like, they don't even exist on YouTube hardly anymore. So, and I remember his video about it was called, I think Wolf Blitzer, or it was one of the, I think CNN guys, called him like a total honk conspiracy theorist. And I mean, when you start talking about stuff like that, yeah, for whatever reason, even though journalists are supposed to be the most skeptical and the most aware of special interest and corruption, it feels like often there's this very sort of accepting of reality. This is the way things are. There aren't really things like that happening. Like, I remember one of the times telling a friend of mine about this propaganda campaign around the COVID vaccines and the mandates. And like, you just have to get them. And, otherwise you're going to kill everybody. You're putting America at risk. It's like this hysteria. And I was like, just be careful. This is one of the greatest propaganda campaigns since the Patriot Act and 9/11. And she was like, well, we're going to have to agree to disagree. This is not propaganda. And you're just like, what? I mean, I'm not against like having differences in opinions, but like, to me, to say like, you really don't think there's a marketing campaign happening right now to get people to think this way and to all align in this position to be fearful of their neighbor and lash out towards people and want to take away. You don't think that's intentional, that's coming from an intentional place? Like, to hear, you may say, I like it. Maybe you say, I like it. I think we should have all of these billboards up that say, protect your kid, do this and whatever. But you can't, to me, it's like, it's a non-debatable fact that there is an intentional marketing campaign from the government that is aligned with corporate news specifically. But, you see Fauci on YouTube all the time. Like, there are big YouTubers that are somehow, I don't know if they're getting paid or what, oh, you get to talk to Fauci if you'll push this message. So it's happening for us too in the independent world. But it's nuts to me that there would be journalists sitting back right now in this very time still thinking there's no such thing as propaganda happening right now. You even say it's good propaganda, but it is definitely propaganda. Like, it is messaging coming straight from the government that's getting repeated by corporate news. And to question that that's not happening, to be like, no, it's just, it's just the truth. Like, I'm like, I don't know how, I don't know. I mean, I have to be, I guess, a little bit humble about it, because there was a time and place when I was in the news business where I was not awake to this kind of stuff either. And so like, but I really would love to know what it is so that I could go back and be like, listen, this is what we should do with young journalists so that they don't end up in the situation that I probably was in far too long, which was just like, the Department of Health sends a press release and we just read it. And we don't say like, what's the interest of the Department of Health? Why are they saying this? Because if you brought us a story idea and you were challenging the Department of Health, we might be interested in hearing what you had to say, but we would vet it thoroughly. We'd be like, oh, who's Dan and what's his dog in the fight? And is this really true? And we would need secondary and tertiary sources, and we would cross-check and all that stuff. But when often like the government or one of these other agencies sends in information, we're just like, well, they're just here to help. They're just telling us the truth. It's the government, and you just say the Department of Health says blah, blah, blah. And we just repeat it straight from the press releases instead of asking why would they be saying that? And why would they be, what behavior are they trying to elicit from those of us? And we're just the mouthpiece for them. There just was nowhere near that level of skepticism when I was in the business. And frankly, like once I started to go down that route where I was starting to ask questions and wanting to put voices on air that would challenge that. That's when my boss told me that I was basically nuts and was never allowed to pitch certain story ideas ever again. And so it was very clear that like you stayed in line or else you were going to become the anathema of the newsroom. Like and maybe people aren't even aware of that from a conscious standpoint. It maybe might be just a subconscious, like the way you are in 8th grade, well, don't wear that outfit. That's stupid. It could be the same thing. Like you're not really aware of it. You just know there's a social pressure to have cohesive thought. And I just think it's really unfortunate, especially now that we're losing people like you who, agree or disagree. You bring an important counterpoint to that majoritarian perspective. I think that in the newsrooms that really is sort of the way that most people are thinking. And so I think it's unfortunate that your newsroom went that direction, but we'll see what happens with your run. And then you're going to have to come back on and give us all the dirty details on Congress.
Yeah. I'll tell you what it's really like from the inside. Real quick, if anybody believes that there's no propaganda campaign going on right now, you should go back and read the American Rescue Plan, ARP, was passed, I believe, in April. Millions and millions of dollars. And one of the most troubling things to me that they were doing was they were looking at each individual communities, like big cities, and trying to identify thought leaders and influencers and trying to get them on board with this message of everybody has to have a vaccine no matter what, everybody, and just go run out and get it and don't ask any questions. Yeah, it's out there. It's the Health and Human Services Secretary was given a blank check essentially to run these campaigns. Billions of dollars have poured into it, and it's all in writing. A lot of it was voted on by Congress and it's law. So, I mean, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's happening right now.
Yeah. One other question came in for you. Do you have any statements about Assange? And do folks in his parts think he is a spy? Do you have any statements about Julian Assange? Julian Assange. And do you have any thoughts on him? And curious what you think about him and coverage of maybe of his case in the news.
It's a mystery even to me. I don't know if we'll ever know the truth of who he is or how it all came about. I like the concept that you would have an area where a whistleblower could get documents out and get to the public. I like that concept. I'm not up to speed enough on his current situation to really comment intelligently. But I'll tell you this, whatever you think you know about that guy, it's been so muddied by governments around the world. Who knows what the truth is? I don't know if anyone will ever fully know exactly what happened there. But it's I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that know a lot more about Julian Assange than I do. That's for sure.
I'll plug one of my videos with Steve from Slow News Day. You guys can go to my other platforms and check it out. One interesting thing about Assange, covering Assange anyway, is my YouTube video. I'm going to check it right now and show everybody, because my YouTube video on Assange is still demonetized, I believe. I did a video. God, I'm going to have to scroll through. Hang on a second. Because I did this video months ago. I want to say July. I mean, hang on. I'm scrolling down to the next. I have to go way back. And they found it, what do they call it? Not suitable for most advertisers. And here, I think I can do this. Assange. No, now it gives me Jussie Smollett. Way to go, YouTube. What a search engine. So
Close.
Close. Yeah, Jussie Smollett. That's pretty funny. God, I have to go way back. Sorry, everybody. Ivory Hecker, Leaving Hollywood, Antifa. Keep going. Hang on. I'm going to find this. Because I just want to make sure that it still is, in fact, demonetized. And it's so weird because it's still in purgatory. It's like they haven't even given me an answer about it yet, which is very odd. Okay, I think I might just give up. It's not letting me.
Send me the link. I want to learn.
I'm going to. Yeah, I'll send you the link because it was pretty good. And I think Steve knows a lot more than. I'm going to try it one more time. Assange. Is this it? Yes. Okay. Analytics. Engagement revenue. Yeah, it's still. Here we go. People are, yep. Okay. It's go crazy. I'm glad I'm showing everyone this because this is really nuts. You guys should see what's behind the scenes. Sorry. And I haven't even lost. You see, this is amazing. If you did this on TV news, you'd probably lose a ton of people. So you can see, I don't know if it'll let me make it bigger here. Yeah. See this yellow dollar sign? Okay. This says limited. And it says the video is being reviewed to determine whether it's suitable for most advertisers. Okay. So they're still reviewing it. Let me see if I can find. Yeah. I'm trying to see, when did I upload this? It was literally, I think July, I'm going to say, when I did this video. So it's been in purgatory for months. They're still reviewing it. And you know, the other video that recently got demonetized was, Ghislaine Maxwell. So I've had, you know, we've done Rittenhouse, we've done Ahmed Arbery, we've done even some COVID videos, but dang, when you start talking about Ghislaine Maxwell and Julian Assange, your videos are not going to get monetized for whatever reason. So
yeah, that's over the line.
Yeah, it's over the line. Okay, Dan, any other final thoughts before you go?
Just go to danthomasforcongress.com and you can get a hold of me there. I do answer the phone. I answer all the emails that we get, and you know, it's a short race. We've got a short time to get this done, so I need all the help I can get. I hope everybody can jump in.
Okay, Dan Thomas, thanks again. Good luck.
All right, thanks, Allison.